our lives, somebody has asked us to describe love. What is love? Well, if I'm pretty sure your answers were the same thing as mine. It's something powerful. It's something you can't really explain. It's just something that you feel. And I would still agree that that's pretty much what the case is. But I actually finished reading a book about 4 weeks ago. And I have to say that this author did a very good job at actually breaking down love in 5 different categories. And the moment that you actually understand what those 5 categories are, you will not only be able to understand what love is, but you will be able to identify it within different people. So the book is called 5 Love Languages, and languages is in there for a particular reason. So we'll see what you guys decide on this. We have 3 people. First person here verbally speaks my language. Second person kind of speaks my language. Third person doesn't speak my language at all. Now, what do you guys think? Who would I be more inclined to befriending, to falling in love with, like out of all these 3 people? The first one, right? Right, cool. So, that's the same case when it comes to love. Since there's 5 different love languages, that drawness that you feel towards somebody is usually because when that person starts speaking your love language, right now you're not aware about what each of them are, but that drawness that you feel that I don't know why I like to be around that person, he's just cool or this and that or whatever, it's usually because they're speaking your love language, they're speaking your primary love language. So, the first one here is called words of affirmation. Now, what that means is that if that was your primary love language, that means that you have a tendency to be the type of person that says nice things to other people all the time. You're always complimenting them, saying nice things, and in turn, when people say the same things to you, and that's your primary love language, you have this sense of love, of this, again, that drawness towards that person. This is like, I don't know why, but it's because of that. They're speaking your love language. So a key point to keep in mind on that is that when it comes to that, it's a two-way street. You're not only receiving that as a sign of love, but you also have the tendency to give it back as well. And it applies to all 5 of them. So that's words of affirmation. The second one is acts of service. So acts of service would be, for instance, I have my car here, my neighbor's car is over there, and I happen to know that my neighbor has the flu or something. He can't even get out of bed. So I'm washing my car, making it all nice and stuff, and I say, you know what? Let me go over here, just wash this car down or whatever, because I just want to be nice, and when he comes out, oh look, my car is all shiny, right? That is somebody that was my primary love language. That's pretty much the kind of things that I would be doing all the time. And in turn again, if somebody did it to me, you can imagine how I would feel about that. So, the third language is physical touch. Now we're going to keep this PG. Yes, physical touch does go as far as sex and all that stuff, but as far as friendship-wise, physical touch, when a person expresses themselves in that manner, it's usually those people that tend to be huggers. They like to hug, they like to grab you on the shoulder and be like, yeah, this is great or whatever. In general, it's usually those people that you're like, okay, you're in my zone right now, get away from me. Those are usually the people that are expressing themselves in that manner. So, fourth one is gift giving. Now, ladies all know that when it comes to gifts, the ones that you appreciate the most are not the most expensive ones, it's the one that has the thought behind it. So if I, for instance, find a little pebble shaped like a heart, and I say, hey, this reminded me, here you go. If your primary love language was gift giving, then you'd probably be the type of person that would take it, put it in a crystal box, and cherish it forever on a shelf. Because you look at that and you just feel love, it reminds you of that. So that's what gift giving is. And the fifth one is quality time. Now, quality time, the example I'm going to give you guys on that one is actually going to emphasize the importance of at least having a little bit of knowledge of what this is. So quality time, my dad is always texting me all the time. I try to visit him at least every 2 to 3 weeks, but he's always texting me saying, when are you going to come visit? When are you going to come over? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to come, whatever, Thursday or whatever. But I'm always thinking, why is it that he wants me to come over? Because when I come over to the house, I don't really have anything in common with my parents. So I'm just sitting there on the couch next to my dad watching TV, talking about nothing, just pretty much counting down the time until it's like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, and it's deep now. But after I read this book, now I finally understood that he is the type of person that's quality time. That's his primary love language. So the act of me just sitting next to him, that's what makes him feel love. So now that I understand this, I'm not, I have, even though it's not my primary love language, I make more of effort to try to show my love towards him by actually visiting him more frequently. So you're all probably wondering, what is your primary love language? Well, mine's turned out to be physical touch. And the reason I know that is because at the end of the book, they give you a quick 5 to 10 minute survey, and you answer it, a bunch of questions, and then it tells you what it is. So, that being the case, I was actually going to email it to you guys, having a little technical difficulty. But when I get home, I will email you guys that copy of that survey, so you can actually take that test as well and see what your primary love language is. So, 2 things to take away from that is that, again, as I mentioned, it's great to know what your primary love language is, but especially when it comes to your loved ones in your life right now, it's a good idea for you to actually try to have them take the test and see what their language is, because once you know what it is, you can be more effective in terms of loving them. The last point is something very crucial. Now, love can turn into hate like that, very easily. So you have to understand that if, for instance, your primary love language is words of affirmation, that means that just by me saying nice things to you, you will automatically feel loved and all that stuff. But if I say something bad to you, it's like a hot knife cutting through butter. It's going to sting them more than it would somebody else that it's just like, whatever, they're just words, I don't care. So those are things to keep in mind. And as always, I hope that this was informative.